From the crucial role she played in the show to bagging two wildly different roles after her exit, this is what Megan Boone revealed about leaving the Blacklist. She was one of the show's main characters from the beginning, playing a central role in the storyline for 8 whole seasons. When Raymond Reddington showed up out of the blue, he said he could give the FBI secret info about all his underworld contacts, but he had 2 conditions. First, he wanted immunity for all his crimes, but more confusingly, he said he'd only talk to one agent in particular, Elizabeth Keene. At first, she was just as baffled about it as everyone else, and she was also naturally suspicious about his supposed desire to turn a new leaf. Now, it's fair to say that Red changed Liz's life forever, but it's not like she wasn't surrounded by enemies. I mean, her own husband, Tom, turned out to be one of the highest-ranking members of Red's Blacklist, so it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. Over the years, she came to trust Red with her life, and he proved that he cared about her time and time again. But eventually, their relationship soured. There was no coming back after Red killed Liz's mom before her eyes. She went from being his right hand to sitting right at the top of the Blacklist, ranking even higher than her husband. Their relationship became one of the central themes of the series, so I was pretty shocked by all the twists and turns, and things got really crazy when she died at the end of Season 8. Look, pitting Red and Liz against each other is one thing, but killing her off is another entirely. You're telling me they didn't want to milk that storyline until the very end? She was clearly using everything she'd learned to take Red down, becoming his greatest opponent ever, and in a way, her heel turn felt like it was inevitable. Like, she barely knew anything about her real identity, and there was always the question of Red being her dad, so the pressure was bound to get to her sooner or later. Finding out she has the warrior gene took her down an even darker path, and before Red murdered her mom, she'd already gone off the deep end by murdering someone and covering it up. That said, nothing could have prepared me for the way her storyline concluded. You see, Red was prepared to tell Liz everything, which was a breath of fresh air after years of vague responses, but she had to kill him to get what she wanted. Not only did this make her realize how important Red was to her, but it also showed that getting answers mattered more than having a relationship with him. She was ready to pull the trigger, but right before she got the chance, Van Dyke kills her. When I first saw this go down, I was hopeful she'd somehow make it out alive. After all, this isn't the first time she died on the Blacklist. Like, remember in Season 3 when she seemed to die while giving birth? The car crash caused serious complications for the delivery, and while her baby came out safe and sound, the showrunner clearly wanted us to think she was dead. Of course, this was way back in Season 3, and she managed to escape death and give us another 5 years of adventures, so I was hoping for something similar this time around. They kinda left her death open-ended, but unfortunately, both Boone and the showrunners had already announced her exit. Elizabeth Keene, the character that had kept the Blacklist together for so many years, was gone for good. Don't get me wrong, this was a great storyline. We'd been waiting to find out who's at number 1 for years now, and the writers earned the twist by putting Liz in the spot, but I just have one question. Why would Megan leave such a great gig? Like, she was earning about $100,000 an episode, which comes up to over $2 million a year. What's more, she'd always talked about her passion for the role. Boone related to Liz on so many levels, and after playing her for 8 years, she felt like they were one and the same. That's not even mentioning the love she got from the fans. So, what's going on here? Well, some fans wondered if she'd fallen out with the showrunner, but the truth is, she just wanted to try something different. She must have been tired playing the same old character for nearly a decade, and she felt like she should branch out into other projects. I totally get where she's coming from, because she's 40 years old at this point, and it's pretty common for actors to leave famous roles behind as they age. As she announced her departure, Boone gave a heartfelt farewell to the show, her castmates, and most importantly, the fans. Calling the past 8 years a dream come true, Liz said that she'll never forget her time on the show, and her words clearly struck a chord with the fans. As soon as Megan's announcement came through, fans flooded social media, thanking her for all the wonderful years she gave them. Apart from all the love, many fans teared up at the thought of her leaving, expressing their sadness at her decision, and also saying the show won't be the same without her. Like one fan said, the show's whole dynamic was gonna change now that she's gone, and I have to admit, I agree. Elizabeth Keene was the perfect foil to Raymond Reddington all these years. The criminal mastermind always felt larger than life, thanks in no small part to James Spader's masterclass acting performance, but he also owes a debt to Megan. She helped ground the show, offering a sensible alternative to Red's controlled chaos. And without her, I just don't see how the writers can rein him in, especially given how she acted as an audience stand-in. If ever you had a question on your mind, Liz was there to ask it for you, helping fans to feel like they were in the show instead of watching it on a screen. To be fair, the writers have done a decent job taking the show forward. At the end of the day, James Spader's the star, and as long as he's around, people are going to turn up to see what happens. I also feel like the 2-year time jump worked well. It helped both the characters and the fans digest the major death, as well as dispel any doubts that it was a true end to Liz's story arc. The Blacklist's set to end with its 10th season, so even though Liz isn't around anymore, she helped shepherd the show almost all the way through, and I, for one, support her decision to move on to greener pastures. Now you're probably wondering what she's been up to these past few years. One thing's for sure, she's moved up in the world after leaving the show. For starters, Megan established her own production company called Weird Sisters. Her vision was to build a woman-led company that'd try to tell unique stories, and she's been pretty vocal about exploring stuff outside the mainstream. It's not just a pipe dream either, cause not long after launching Weird Sisters, she inked a contract with Sony to produce multiple projects. The Blacklist clearly helped her build up a profile, and she's come a long way from her Law & Order days, so I'm happy she was able to use the role to boost her career. Before you ask, there's no word yet on what show she's making for Sony, but whatever it is, I'm sure she'll bring her considerable creative prowess to the table. That's not to say she's been under the radar, though. She's played 2 vastly different characters after exiting the Blacklist. Megan didn't waste any time, lining up an appearance on the Underground Railroad in 2021. She might have only starred in 1 episode, but that was enough to show how much depth she has as an actress. You've got to understand, the Underground Railroad is about African Americans escaping slavery in the 19th century, which probably required a different set of acting skills than an escapist thriller like The Blacklist. Megan didn't stop there either, showing up on the Fox legal thriller, Accused, in 2023. Again, she only got 1 episode, but this is an anthology series we're talking about. Each episode has a self-contained story, and in the 2nd installment, Megan was the lead actress. But she's mostly been focusing on her work behind the camera. Sony gave her a first look deal after all, which means they clearly like what she's got. After spending so long reading other people's scripts, Megan's ready to tell her own stories, and based on what I've heard about Weird Sisters, I can't wait to see what she has in store. So from playing 2 completely different roles after her exit, to the 8 years she spent holding the show together, this was Megan Boone revealing why she left the Blacklist.